Welcome back, Ags. Greg Martin and Chris Hunter here. In this week's episode of Aggie Growth Hacks, we have Dr. Adrian Guzman, who is a Triple Crown Aggie, meaning that he got his undergrad, graduate, and PhD from Texas A&M. After over a decade of learning, Adrian is now leading a company that has cutting-edge technology that has dreams of literally impacting the entire world. Welcome back, Ags. This is Greg Martin and Chris Hunter with Aggie Growth Hacks, and today we've got a Triple Crown winner for you today. Adrian Guzman, who is the CTO of HelioWave Technologies, Fighting Texas AA class of 2008, 2012, and 2019. Recently, Adrian has been out on the pitch competition circuit, and he is just like a Triple Crown winner. He's a winner in the pitch competition circuit. I had the pleasure of first meeting Adrian at the Texas New Venture pitch competition, where he won not one but two prizes, and took home awards from the Texas New Venture competition, the competition itself, as well as the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation. And then our beloved McFerrin Center opened up a Aggie pitch competition, opening up to current and former students. And Adrian and his team was able to go and compete in that and took second place in that. So Adrian, you are a Triple Crown winner. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your wisdom and your willingness to share with us today. Well, Adrian, you have had so much experience at A&M. Can you narrow down one favorite memory that really stands out in your mind?
I think there's many, but for me, it's probably, there's a certain camaraderie that is alive at A&M, and you really experience it in a lot of the different events that happen at A&M. And for me, it's probably that first football game that I went to, or the first time seeing the Aggie band and going with my roommates and, people I kind of, just met, and being able to experience that, kind of camaraderie with people that you really haven't, had much interaction with. It's just a whole different type of environment and feeling that you get, from being on the field versus being in the boxes.
Love it. And what's funny is that a lot of Aggies, I would say an easy 90% of who we've talked with, or 98%, right? Yeah. Whoop, has said almost the same exact thing, that football was their favorite memory. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about HelioWave Technology. What do you do? Who's your team? What are the key things that you guys are trying to do?
So HelioWave Technologies is a sterility and bioburden testing industry company. And essentially for therapeutic manufacturers, currently right now, they conduct batch processing. So for any type of therapeutics or medications that are received by patients, typical manufacturers conduct batch processing. At the very end of the batch processing, they test for contamination to see if there's any type of contamination in the medicine. And that leads them to having to dispose of large amounts of these precious therapeutics or medications, because they don't know that their workflow or their production line is contaminated. So what HelioWave Technologies we're doing is we're developing microfluidic chips. They're small chips that sit in the size of your hand that can increase the sensitivity, reduce the cost, reduce the turnaround time, and also give therapeutic manufacturers the ability to monitor their production line in real time. And this gives them comfort that not only their production line is contamination free, but then allows them to pinpoint exactly where contamination might be arising in their production line and resolve it without having to waste a large amount of therapeutics. So they can just temporarily shut down their production line and without wasting too much money. And then once they resolve the issue, restart it. So the second part of that question, I guess, for my partners, I have two partners, which are basically my two collaborators from Texas A&M University when I was helping to develop this technology at A&M during my PhD. And we have two business advisors, and then also one expert in the vaccine production. And then recently, with the award of the competition, we are now working with the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation, and they're helping us as well on the business development side.
That is so cool, Adrian, to be able to have that's goes right into my next question. So I'm going to ask you your big, hairy, audacious goal in just a second. But how did you realize that this was a problem that needed to be solved, but then that you had the expertise to be able to solve it? Because that, to me, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah, it's tough. I think for us, a lot of the technology that we've developed, we just kind of stumbled upon it. It's basically hours and hours of research in the lab, trying to find something, and you end up finding something else or some other weird phenomenon, and then exploiting that phenomenon and trying to figure out which application that can be used for. On the research and development side, it kind of ends there with publications, but on the business side, it's about taking that technology and then really making a product out of it, and so that's a whole nother kind of aspect to the game that you have to learn. And so that's where I've kind of been learning the technology side and developing the technology in the lab we've been doing for some time, but really taking that technology to the business world, to the market is it's a lot tougher challenge.
So is it safe to say that when you started your research and everything, that this was not what you were trying to solve?
No, no. So maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later about some of the research that I was focused on during my PhD. But through the development of the different chips that we've been creating for the past 5+ years, it just happened to be that one of those chips, we realized we could use it for this particular application. We went and talked to the companies that are in this field to see if they had a need for that particular instrument. And after discussing with several of those and kind of doing a rough market analysis, we realized, okay, there's an opportunity here, and we decided to go ahead and launch the company and move forward.
Very cool. So that is such an audacious goal. You had to start the company with a BHAG. So, Adrian, can you tell us what your BHAG is? Where do you want to be in 10 years?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, so there is another technology that I've been helping develop in the lab that I currently hold a few patents with A&M. And that technology is basically for drug discovery. So there's another problem which has been known for the past 20 or so years, which is these superbugs or multi-drug resistant strains of microbes. So they're because of our misuse of antibiotics, there's a lot of these strains of microbes or different cells that are resistant to our drugs that we currently have. And with the decline in a lot of these broad spectrum antibiotic and therapeutics, there's been a need for a lot of these a new classification of drugs, essentially. And so we've been developing a chip in the lab to help reinvigorate the industry for drug discovery for therapeutic manufacturers. And essentially what this will do is it'll bring brand new drugs to the market that currently aren't there, classifications that currently aren't there. And this can help, not only therapeutic manufacturers, but ultimately help patients and give us a new line of therapeutics. And so, it's, obviously the industry is a lot bigger, there's a lot more money, but really for me, it's about helping as many people as I can. And so, that project just touches a lot more people. It helps a lot more people. It can really help the entire world and not just one sickness or one ailment, but all the different types of ailments, ranging from cancers, blood conditions, any type of disorder or type of medication that's needed.
So cool.
Wow, that is so cool. Gosh, that's such a big, huge, hairy, audacious goal to help change the world. That's pretty awesome. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had to date. What has been your biggest challenge, and how have you, since we're Aggie Growth Hacks, how have you hacked it?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me has probably been there's a lot of things that come into play. Everyone's life, the life issues that you have going on with your family and things like that. There's a lot of hurdles that come up along the way, personally with time management, with, being able to acquire funds to even launch the company is a big hurdle. I think with a lot of these things, you'll hear from a lot of other business, advisors that you're going to hear a lot of no's, and you're going to hear a lot of you get turned down a lot, or, people don't like your product, or they don't think that, your what you're developing is useful or can be used, or, so I think there's a lot of, the hardest part is being able to listen to some of that criticism, not take it too personally, because a lot of people don't intend it to be personal, and trying to look at it from their shoes or their perspective, and then find out why they're saying that and how you can pivot or change or make adjustments to be able to be successful and to continue on, and to be able to make the change that you want to make. So I would say that for me, that's probably the hardest part, is being able to learn, because I'm the type of person who I like to get everything perfect, every single time, it has to be perfect. And, in the business world, it's not always like that. It's not about, making everything perfect. It's about what works, what's feasible, what can make an impact. So, actually learning that talent is probably the hardest thing for me.
So how have you developed that? Is it by talking with mentors? A lot of that seems to be very personal growth, which is counterintuitive. I mean, yes, you're tweaking your product based on input, but it's more about how you internally, between your own ears, react.
Right. It is. And, coming from an environment where I was very much, a lab rat, right? I don't have to interact with too many people, and I just kind of sit there in the lab and develop my technology, to being out there and constantly talking to people. And it's a very different skill. But, so I kind of had to retrain my mind a little bit, but, I also, try to watch as many, videos, tip videos, and, there's a lot of good stuff they have out there and on, YouTube, and, other, types of articles and things that they give you for tips on how to, approach, different situations or different people or different audiences. And so, and obviously a lot of it's, trial and error, and failing on, failing and seeing what I did wrong, and then, just turning around and saying, how can I improve, and try to make the adjustments.
Yeah. So Adrian, that's a really good segue into the next question. Both Chris and I are fascinated by your company, and the business model that you have. I mean, it's something that neither one of us have got a lot of experience with. So the way that these types of technology are developed is through a huge amount of investment from investors or owners or something, to be able to kind of fuel the research to get to a viable product, and then you go to market. That requires, like you talked about, a completely different skill set from your chief technology officer had. You're the chief investment officer, and going out and really doing that role of the CIO or the CEO, and finding the funds. How do you balance that in your week?
So it's very tough. It's been very hard for me. I really enjoy being in the lab. I enjoy, kind of tinkering around, and, running experiments and testing things in the lab and pushing things to the limit. And so that's kind of where my passion really lies, and what I, excel at and enjoy. But I've had to kind of offload some of that to some of my coworkers or some of my collaborators, and kind of, give them some of that technical work to do, and more sit back and kind of play a leader role. The company and the finances of the company, and, it has to come first, doing the contracts, and, submitting, and, doing VC pitches, and, trying to raise money and contacting people, all that, unfortunately it has to come first, because without money, there is no company. Right. So, so that
gotta have fuel.
Yeah. Right. So it has to come first. But, you don't want to give up on any of the continual advancements that you're conducting with your technology. You always want to be trying to look at your technology and see where you can make improvements, and be thinking about, well, if I'm on version 1, what does version 2 look like? Or, what does version 3 look like? And so, yeah, I think it's a very tough balance, but just, it's a time management skill. I'm still not the best at it. But it's really about, putting, I guess, the company first, and kind of putting the other things on the back burner, and then, just trying to balance, and, say what needs to be done, right now, immediately, what can I kind of put off for a day or two and kind of get in the lab and do a couple things and then, kind of come back to the company.
So as someone that, has started startups, right? Has been in startups my entire entrepreneurial career, right? That totally resonates with me because you wear multiple hats at any given point, as the visionary, as the CTO, as whatever, right? So, but my question really that, going into our next question here is, how do you even get to the point to where you are starting to talk with investors, and what is that criteria that investors are looking for, right? Is it cash? I mean, what exactly is that? Because I've never, honestly, and a lot of our folks that are listening to this might be in that almost stage and might be thinking about a venture, something like this.
Yeah. So I mean, there's obviously a lot of grants and government, grants that you can apply for depending on what tech space you're in and what, there's some grants that are focused on a certain area. And so you can definitely go look at and try to apply for some of those grants. We've applied for some of those grants, and they can be very useful, especially when you're in a startup. And because if you don't have, typically the VCs or some of the later end investors, they want the IP. They want to make sure that your company has the IP that's fully patent, fully licensed. They want to make sure that you have some business advisors. They want to make sure that, they want to see your business plan. They might want a certain stake in the company. They might want to be on the board. So I think preparing for those pitches, you really want to, of course, have your, slide deck and have a nice video and kind of a demo of your product and the IP. I would say, those are the kind of big hitting points. And obviously, if you're generating some revenue, that's also a very great and very appealing to some of those VCs, especially as you get further on. I think in the early stage, though, it's about partnering with who's most beneficial for you. Some say, well, it's better to just take the money early and just go ahead and run with it. And other people say, well, it's better to take the money late and own majority of the company, and I think for everybody, it might be a little bit different. But at least for us on, being in the biotech industry, we basically have focused. We've been able to develop the technology and do the pilot run and, further the technology. Right now, we're really starting to get into looking at mass manufacturing. But at all stages, you need funding. It doesn't matter if it's the beginning or the end, you need funding at all stages. And it's just about deciding when to go for what funding and then, seeing who's available and what partners might, best be suited for you and your company.
Adrian, I've got to ask you said about 5 or 6 different skills during, by the way, this is what you've got to do in order to raise money. That has nothing to, I'll bet you all of your degrees at A&M did not teach you how to create video, did not teach you how, to have the poise and the presence of pitching someone, to be able to know how to negotiate an investment round and then look at the legal documents to know, is this a good deal or not? Where did you learn that?
I think, I don't know if it's just my personality or I pick up things very quickly, I guess. But, I'm always been the type of person that wears many hats. Even within my own lab, I'm focused on, electronics and biomedical, but I've even, branched out to optics and, chemical engineering and some of these other. So, it's being in a field where everything is so diverse, you naturally have to pick up other things. Otherwise, you constantly are dependent on other people and, it can become cumbersome. It's nice to have a team around you, and if possible, and to have other people that can wear some of those hats, especially at a very skilled or high level. But it's good to also at least know the basics of all those different different types of hats. And so, so for me, it's just been kind of picking it up slowly here or there. Nothing has really come all at one time. It's just been kind of picking up those slowly over time.
So my question really was going to be, or is, how do you like, how much time do you spend on, because you were talking earlier about having to spend time on this and spend time on this hat and, you know, take this hat off, put this hat on. So how much time would you say that you spend on learning these new things that you have to learn, right? Is it, you know, obviously maybe sitting at home watching YouTube things, or what's your process? Because obviously you have a process that works really well if you're attracting investors and you've got all of these things kind of in progress. So what's your process there for learning these new skills?
I forgot to mention, I guess I should have told you beforehand, but I did go through the I-Corps with the McFerrin Center. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. What is It's basically a business development program. And so I was able to learn a lot there with the I-Corps, and we did it in Houston, Texas. And so I was able to not only understand, you know, about market analysis and, you know, about customer segments and, you know, how to, you know, make sure you're targeting the right audience and everything like that. You know, I would say for me, a lot of it is reading, and it tends to be, I have kind of like alerts that come up whenever there's like a business article or something that comes up, small business article, small business development articles. I tend to read those, you know, just whenever I have time. You know, there's a couple YouTube channels that I kind of, you know, watch for here and there. They have a lot of good tips.
That's lightning round number 2, baby.
They have a couple tips there. You know, so I would say a lot of it is kind of reading, watching. You know, I do a lot of, you know, a lot of online searches when there's something I don't know. You know, I'll just go kind of look up and see, you know, different types of ways to do it, different type of ways people have done it, or different approaches. And kind of make my own decision or my own best assessment of what might be best for me or for my company or my situation. So I think there's maybe not one single trick. It's kind of, you know, you have to have the drive to be able to want to learn those things, and then just, you know, the internet is there, so, you know, just going and kind of trying to look and see what is not only, you know, good for you, but most interesting or most suitable for you or your company.
All right, so that brings us into the lightning round, which rules for this are simple, are to answer within 1 to 2 minutes. And so here we go. What's your favorite hack? This can be personal, it can be business, whatever. Anything goes here. What is your personal favorite hack?
Personal favorite hack. I'd probably say for me, it's the ability to have perseverance. And how I normally accomplish that is it also ties into time management. It was being able to kind of take that 30 minutes to an hour a day or so that you need to, you know, maybe go for a run, or, you know, maybe, you know, go sit down, have a nice meal by yourself, you know, to clear your head. You know, it can come in a lot of different forms, but being able to know, you know, because I think one of the things that people suffer from is burnout a lot of times in a startup. And so to be able to have the time management where you can say, okay, I'm going to take this 30 minutes or this hour, you know, of my time, you know, on said day, you know, this week or next week or whatever, and to be able to separate that time so that you can, you know, kind of, you know, collect yourself.
Well, Adrian, what is one book, a podcast, a YouTube that you've gotten a lot of value of? You are a voracious learner. So where do you go when you want to learn?
So I think the YouTube channel that I typically use is called, I think, Young Entrepreneurs Forum. So they have a lot of short little tip videos there that you can go. There's a lot of different videos that are aimed at, you know, different aspects. But I enjoy them because some videos can be just way too long and you just don't have that much time to sit there and watch the entire videos. These tend to be not too long, fairly informative, and you can kind of search and figure out, you know, what you want or what you're looking for. So, you know, that's the form that I typically kind of just look out and just see, hey, are there any videos that, you know, recently have come up?
Love it. So what, we all know how valuable really that the Aggie network is to us and as Aggies. Is there anyone in the Aggie network that you'd like to say a huge shout out to?
There's many people. I think, So there's a partner of ours, Dr. Sarab, who helped to run the TNVC competition, and all of his team. They did a fabulous job with the TNVC competition, and I'd love to give a shout out to them for not only hosting, but for also speaking to me and helping me in my personal business development questions that I had. Also, the other individuals like Blake Petty and Laura Lee at the McFerrin Center. So when I did iCore, actually, they were my the two hosts of the iCore, and so I met them several years ago and have kind of kept in contact with them, and they've been very valuable in helping to not only open up doors within the network, with Aggie Angel Network and overall in the Aggie Network, but also to just help to kind of hone my skills a little bit on pitching and kind of how to look at a business and a startup and those types of things, and then obviously my two partners that are with the Aggie Angel Network and also our partner at the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation, who is Matt. Also like to give a shout out to him for supporting us and also for helping us with the business development.
I think you've got the Mount Rushmore of Aggie Network right there with all of those folks. It's some amazing Ags. And it's the thing is that each one of them loves entrepreneurship and loves to see entrepreneurs succeed. So it's super cool that you're connected with them and living proof. So Adrian, how can the Aggie Network get in touch with you and how can we support you moving forward?
So if you want to get in contact with the company, you can email us at business@heliowavetech.com. HelioWave Tech is all one word. And you can personally email me at adrianrg74@heliowave.tech.com. And then for our Facebook, you can search HelioWave Space Technologies Space LLC. And also on Instagram, you can search HelioWave Technologies, all one word, and then on Twitter at HelioWave capital L, and I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So any of those platforms, whatever you prefer. We have our pages are relatively new, but we're going to be posting some new videos and some of the technology here in the next month or so. So if anyone would like to follow, then you can kind of see the technology develop, and later on towards the end of the year, hopefully we'll be doing the pilot runs and posting some more cool things there and launching the technology.
That's great. Is there anything right now that we can help you with, or is it just a matter of encouraging, learning about you and supporting you?
No, I think we can definitely exchange contacts and kind of exchange our plugs, and hopefully I can gain some interest from you guys and kind of send some folks you guys' way as well. I think I have several friends who are interested in different entrepreneurial business advice, so kind of have them tune into your podcast. But I think I just appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to be here, and the bit of exposure that you're allowing me to have. Everything helps at this stage. Any help that I can get is tremendous. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adrian, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the Aggie entrepreneur community and with Aggie Growth Hacks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, how about that, Ags? Was that amazing or what? There were so many valuable hacks that Adrian gave us. What was your favorite, Greg?
Chris, I don't think I can narrow it down to just one. I mean, just Adrian's passion and just his journey has been very encouraging and inspiring to me. But if you're going to nail me down to one, I think that when he talked about his tenacity and his perseverance, this is something that every entrepreneur knows that they have to have, but really to be able to be in the type of company that he is in and to realize that you have to look forward 5, 6, 7 years maybe before you even start selling anything and generating revenue, and to have the tenacity and the conviction that this is going to change the world. To me, that was the number one takeaway that I had, and I'm so honored to be able to talk to Adrian about it. What about you?
Well, obviously I agree with you. I always do that, but Adrian I think he mislabeled himself. He called himself the CTO, right? But he's really the CEO because it's the CEO that has that long-term vision like that. So yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go with my tried and true, which is blocking and tackling.
Block and
right?
tackle, baby.
Block and tackle, baby. Well, he kept talking about that, about time management. And when you're wearing so many hats, you're doing so many different things, obviously that comes into play. You absolutely have to, at some point in your entrepreneurial career, learn how to block and tackle your time. So, I'm going to beat that drum and beat it and continue to beat it some more, is that blocking and tackling is super, super important. But I've got a number two.
Give me a bonus.
Here. Bonus is the ugly baby syndrome. I love it. Absolutely love that right there. In the simple fact that, we as entrepreneurs, we do get a little too close to our own products and services, right? And especially when we're creating them from scratch, and we have to ensure that and I've been very guilty of that. Back in the early 2000s, me and my business partner created some software that is now mainstream, right? But it was not at all taken by the educational community whatsoever. And it flopped. It completely flopped. And it's just simply because it was before its time. We didn't have a whole lot of people that we talked to about it before we spent all this money and created it, right? So it is what it is. And that was a huge lesson that I had to learn personally. And I wish that I had talked with the McFerrin Center about that before we had started this and learned about ugly baby syndrome. So that's my bonus takeaway.
But it's kind of the two sides of the same coin. I mean, you have to be open-handed and realize that your baby might be ugly, but then you have to have the perseverance and the tenacity to be able to tweak or change it, or, to take correct feedback, but still drive on. So how an entrepreneur does that is one of the things that makes entrepreneurship so special, and it makes it so amazing when entrepreneurs do succeed. And which is why we love talking with them and love sharing and expanding our network.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Aggie Growth Hacks. Chris and I hope that you enjoyed it. And then we also hope that you leave us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us right now. Make sure that you check out our website at aggiegrowthhacks.com, where you can hear all of our previous episodes. You can connect with Chris and I. And while you're there, make sure you check out the monthly hack shops, where we tackle some of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs have, and then we talk to an expert and have a deep dive that provides actionable and tangible advice.
Aggie Growth Hacks was produced by fellow Aggies Kyle Ackerman and Ben Wiggins with Podcast Architects. We want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M University. Since 1999, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship has served as the hub of entrepreneurship for Texas A&M. If you're an Aggie entrepreneur or even a wantrepreneur, head on over to their website to find a program that's right for you. Just search up the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship in Google and head on over there now. Join us next time when we connect with another great Aggie entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter.
And I'm Greg Martin. Thanks and gig 'em.
Whoop!